Lifting up our hearts to heaven, let us imitate the hierarchy of the ages.
So, in continuing the trend of talking about the Beatitudes, which thankfully the choir is still singing, so I appreciate the extra effort. Last week, I had mentioned the specific fact that these are not something new, but rather to give us a different look at the commandments of God from the Old Testament. And we had been kind of missing the mark, and instead of using negative language like "you shall not do," Christ instead says, these are the blessings given to those who do these things. But I wanted to point out two very specifically, and if you'd like to, you can sort of follow along with me in the red books in your pews. The Beatitudes are on page 22, 23, and 24. From the very beginning of them, we see that these are very impersonal. Christ is not specifically talking to anybody. It's just blessed are those. Right? It doesn't point out anybody specific, just blessed are those. Which is quite all right. The same thing with the Ten Commandments. They weren't given to any specific you, but all of you shall not do this. And so on and so forth. But we see a significant change in the very last thing on page 24 that Christ says, which is, blessed are you. It is now no longer those, but blessed are you. And this change is made to specifically point out not just to those he was talking to, but to those who hear it. That's why consistently the gospel says, blessed are those who have, for those who have ears, let them hear. We also are hearing these same things. We are meant to understand. We are meant to receive these messages. And so now this same command is given to us, blessed are you. And what does he say, specifically, blessed are you about? It is if we are persecuted for his sake. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you. So not just the simple bottom line of have you been persecuted, but when men revile you. And how often are we going to be sort of approached with this possibility? Before this, and it's good to note that it is not just once that Christ talks about persecution, but twice in a row. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then immediately thereafter, blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you. And this is something that we have to recognize, that as we continue to go through our lives, we are going to be either reviled or persecuted for our faith in one way or another. How many of you might feel odd if you were to pray in public? And it's perfectly okay to admit it. We live in a culture in which the sort of political correctness of everybody around us dictates what we are able to do comfortably. Not what we're allowed to do. We can do whatever we want. Nobody's going to ever stop you from praying. And if they do, that's going to be a whole legal battle that you're probably going to win. But we are sort of barred in by the comfort of other people, right? If you pray and it offends somebody, now it's a whole debacle. And what is this except a persecution? What is this except a revilement from other people? If you do something to express your faith and somebody tells you that that is stupid, what are you except being reviled by other people for your faith? If you truly believe something and you hold it in your heart, and even without speaking it, somebody just kind of speaks against that. You hold a belief that God truly loves us. And then somebody just offhandedly, when a disaster strikes, says God doesn't care about us. What is that except a persecution? They don't know that they're doing it to you. But it's still something against you. And we are called to stand in the face of this. To let it happen to us. And to, as Christ did, to turn the other cheek. If you want to persecute me, go ahead. I'm going to let you keep doing it. If you want to spit on my beliefs, go ahead. It's not going to change them. If you want to try to change my mind about my God, you're going to run out of breath pretty quickly. That's what we're called to stand for. Is not to do the extraordinary. And not all of us are going to be called to be martyrs. I hope nobody is. I'd really rather not have any of you die for your faith. It'd be a blessing, don't get me wrong, because the martyrs are the greatest among us, but I certainly just don't want anybody to die. But in the face of those persecutions, we're not really going to have that. Nobody's going to run around and start being like, do you love God? And then shooting you. I hope not. But the persecutions that we face are like so many small injuries. I don't know if anybody has read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. No? Yes? There's a short story that he wrote called The Cask of Amontillado. And I loved the beginning of it. I loved the first line, which is, the 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I bore without reproach. But when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. It's that idea that we are meant to, one person was injured over and over. You know, his friend bullies him, beats him up, whatever, and he just deals with it. But when he actually insults him, when he truly offends him, that's where revenge comes in. Us, on the other hand, we're not just meant to bear those 1,000 injuries. We are meant to bear the insult. When we are truly, to our core, shaken by somebody else, we're not meant to seek revenge. We can be offended because it can hurt us. It doesn't feel good when somebody attacks you like that. But if we are to drop the core belief of our faith because somebody insults it by seeking revenge on them, are we really standing up for that faith? If somebody comes to me and tells me, I know you're a priest and God isn't real. He let all these bad things happen to me and a just God wouldn't do that. Therefore, your religion sucks. Which, admittedly, I've heard before. It insults me. And it hurt me at the time. But what do we do from there? If I were to go out and seek revenge, if I were to argue with them, if I were to let myself be so angry that I start insulting them and their beliefs, if I tear them down, if I, God forbid, fight them, am I standing up for what I actually believe in that they just insulted? Or have I shown that I'm worthy of that insult because the moment that somebody attacks me about it, I drop all my beliefs to the floor? We are called to be as steadfast in our faith as we can be, and to even go beyond it. Because Christ doesn't say if men persecute you. He said when. Because he knew that it was going to happen. God knows that we will be contested for our beliefs. God knows that we will be attacked. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then we have to choose when that time comes. Will we be ready? Or will we be steadfast? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.